another episode of Saturday Talks, May edition. So for this month, I do have an announcement which I will get to in just a second. But one of the things I'm really excited about is that this month I'm going to actually feature for our interview is my friend Anna Favaro. She is my friend who is all the way from Italy. That is where she is from, and she's here to talk about Italian culture and the language itself, and also just the aspect of from it, kind of like a little bit of like an outsider perspective of coming to the United States and kind of understanding the concept of like what does that look like for someone who's not from here, in a country where English is not your first language. So she's going to give us a little perspective on that. But I'm just so excited because she actually was a roommate of mine for I think we were roommates for about 6 months. She was here for an internship. And I don't know, I just told her that we introduced ourselves to each other, and apparently I was telling her, oh yeah, I'm multilingual, and she's like, oh, which languages? And then I was like, yeah, so I speak English, French, Spanish, and German. And she said, and then I said, I'm learning Italian, Portuguese, Dutch, and all that. You all know this by now. And she said, oh, I'm Italian, like I can help you with that. I was like, oh, this is great. And so she's basically someone that a person that I value personally, not just because she's Italian and she can help me with my Italian, but she's also one of the most like hilarious, like very much like no nonsense person that I've ever met. She's amazing. So I'm really like glad that you guys get to hear from her. But in the meantime, I have a special announcement. So let's get to that. Hello everyone, I have some really exciting news. We're kicking off the summer season with our Learn As You Go campaign. This summer we're looking to raise $90,000 to help us accomplish our mission, which includes implementing effective teaching methods and instruction, develop and provide the best and most effective learning resources, and giving people opportunities to actively practice what they've learned and build global networks. We're also introducing our new Patreon community so we can continue to create more intensive content on language and culture education. If you'd like to learn more on how to support, make sure you check back in on our website or keep an eye on social media on June 20th for our official campaign kickoff. I'm so excited on how we'll be able to help you become more connected to the world and the people that are in it. All right, guys. Yeah, so next month, I will be launching our campaign, Learn As You Go. It is a campaign that I'm looking to, basically, our organization is looking to raise money to really just be able to help people and expand our reach and our impact beyond just this little square rectangular space on YouTube or Instagram or social media. We actually want to really do something to make some big changes and big differences in the education realm. And I'm really looking forward to it. I really hope that you support, because then in the end, I can't even speak. In the end, community, it just comes back to each other, because when you invest in other people, in a way, it kind of reinvests back into you, because it is content that is going to help you be better learners and also be able to be more proficient in the languages that you already want to learn or you already are in the process of learning. So that's something that I'm really hoping to really make a big impact with our organization. And also, I don't know, it's just something that I'm really, really passionate about. I could go on for days about how important language and culture really is in that sense. It is a part of our everyday lives. And yeah, so you can definitely check that out on social media. If you don't follow us, you can on Instagram and Facebook. We are at Language and People. And then on Twitter, we are Language N People. Apparently someone else has that, Language and People. I'm like, what is that? So yeah, so we can't keep all the tags the same. But yeah, so basically wherever you can find us, or you can always just search Multilingual and Philanthropic Incorporated, and you could always find us. Or you can just type in my name. I oversee everything at this point. But yeah, so I'm really, really excited about it. And for our Patreon community, we're actually going to be launching our Patreon community, a part of that fundraiser. And that's just going to allow us to really be able to help you, get resources out to people who really want to learn, and not just learn a language, but actually like make a language a part of your everyday life outside of our database which we have on our website, and then just so much more. So even like one of the things I really have been wanting to do for a while is like Q&A sessions where I can just talk about, we have a topic such as, if you have questions about language learning, or, I have people in my network from different countries that I would love to bring to you outside of just this, just interviewing them, but actually you guys get to ask questions. And also being able to have master classes and really just find ways of making material that's focused on your careers and your, personal and professional. So, it's not just learning how to say hello, how are you, order a restaurant, where's the bathroom. It's like actually having the ability to take language and culture and really being able to apply it in the most practical ways that you use every day. So without much further ado, I'm going to get to this interview with my friend. So for this month's episode of Saturday Talks, I usually try to emphasize different languages and different cultures. And so just to get more of an authentic perspective on Italian language and culture, I brought in my friend, Anna. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So I'm glad that you were able to come on the show for this month of May, which will be by the time that people are seeing this. But I wanted to ask a little bit about your background. I know that you are Italian, but just like to go more in depth with like your education, where you're from specifically, whatever you wanted to share.
Yeah, sure. So I come from Venice, like a city close to Venice, 20 minutes. So we do have streets. It's not just water, like everybody asks me. I studied graphic design in high school because in Italy you can actually choose what to study in high school. I studied communications in university, and right now I'm working as a marketing strategist for a company here in London. And yeah, that's pretty much my background.
Okay, so I know that I met you back in around like late in 2019 in California, and I know you said that you were there for a marketing internship.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, while I was studying for my master's degree, I wanted to do an internship in the United States because it was always a dream of mine to experience living there. So I basically I found out about this visa. It's called the J1 visa. That basically, if you are enrolled in a university or you just graduated, you can take an internship in the United States, basically. So yeah, what I did was to find a marketing agency in Los Angeles that they would and they accepted to host me. So I stayed in LA for about 5 months, from September 2019 to January, right before the pandemic, January 2020. Yeah, I was able to work as a digital marketer intern for this marketing agency in LA. Yeah.
So, like, did you have like any specific expectations about LA from like moving from Italy to United States, specifically in a city like LA?
So I wanted to move to LA. Like I could choose like anywhere in the United States, basically, but I wanted LA because of the weather, because of the beaches. So my expectation was good weather and good beaches, and then that came to be true. But also because yeah, I've always been attracted to California, to the idea of California. So that's why I chose to move there. And yeah, and frankly, when I arrived, I remember that the first thing I thought was, yeah, that's exactly like in the movies. Like, yeah, it's exactly like that they say that it is. So yeah, those were my expectation. Let's say, if we talk about work, why did I chose to come to the United States? It's more because of the United States are known as the country where if you work hard, you can actually achieve something. You can have success. Let's say. So I've always been attracted by this, and this is why I decided to take an internship there to understand what is the difference between, let's say, an Italian mentality and an American mentality when we talk about work. And regarding this, what I was expecting was exactly what I found. I do believe that the United States is a country where if you work hard, you get what you deserve, let's say. So, yeah.
Okay. And then the other aspect is, since you're also in a country that doesn't speak your native language, like having to speak a foreign language all the time, like what is that like? Because I know for me as an American who has only lived in the United States, and of course I've visited other countries, but having to live there and have to speak a foreign language all the time, does it get better? Or like, I don't know, like the idea of like being kind of like even like from a perspective of even like immigrants, like having to be in a particular country, it's like, I don't know, this language is not my native language.
Yeah. So I remember that at first, it was weird because I feel like, when you think you know a language, like uh, he, before moving to the US, I thought I knew English perfectly. And then when you're there, you realize that all the little words that you are used to say, maybe in Italian, to your friends in Italian because they understand you either way. And when you are in the US, you need to, make yourself, you have other people to understand what you're saying. So you can't talk half Italian and half English, for example. And when I was there, I realized that, like, for example, there were many different words I had no idea, like how to pronounce, how to say, what was the meaning of that. So I remember that this was a bit of a, when I realized, yeah, I thought I knew English better, and then you're like, oh, okay. But I believe that after like a few weeks there, I'm sure that um, my English got better and better. I remember that I struggled a lot in understanding some accents. Like I remember accent from the South is something that I didn't quite understood. It was very challenging for me to understand that. But I guess that's the way I learned English was through TV show and movies, and they talk like pretty standard American accent. But when you're there, you meet people from all different parts of the U.S. You hear very different accents, and that was definitely a challenge. But again, I guess this is why these experiences of moving abroad are very important, because you are alone. You have to understand what others are saying to you. You have to make others understand what you're saying. So you are forced basically to understand a language, and it works. So I remember that after a few weeks, my accent got better, I would say, and I was able to understand much better what other people were saying, basically.
Right. Like, so, well, like, so even just in that sense, like, were there ever days where you're like, I'm done, like, don't talk to
Yeah,
me, like,
yeah, yeah. All the time you were speaking to me. No, I'm kidding. Uh, no, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. So it was quite weird because I remember that when I was in Italy before leaving for the US, every time I watched a movie or whatever, I would have watched it in English, like in original language. But when I was there, I remember that when I wanted to watch a movie, I was like, I want to watch it in Italian. I don't like the dubbed version. I didn't want to think. I didn't want, like. I remember that at the end of the day, I was like, I'm done with this. And it still happens. Now I live in London, and it's the same thing. Like if I want to watch a movie, I want to watch it. Like if I want to relax, I want to do it in Italian. I don't know why. I do speak English. I do understand it, but I guess at some point you just need to have your native language. Like just listen to easy stuff. You don't want to even remotely think at some point of the day. So definitely, yeah, you get tired after a while.
okay. And then, like, from like the very beginning, like, so you learned English in school, or is it just something that you kind of learned like on your own, or how did that
Um,
progress for you?
So here in Italy, you start learning English since first year of elementary school. Uh, but I wouldn't give credit to school if I know English this good. Yeah, it's like all the people I know that speak English, well, let's say, have learned it by their own, on their own. Definitely for me, I learned it back in the days. I was like 13, and I was watching Friends, the TV show. And it's not like I wanted to learn English, but I really liked that show, and I was not able to find online episodes of Friends in Italian, and they were only in English. So I was like, man, I gotta learn English to understand what they're saying. So that's how I learned it, to be honest. It was doing that and also translating like lyrics from songs. That was definitely something that helped quite a lot. But I would say I started very soon. Like I was 13, so your brain, I guess, you're younger, so you learn quickly. I don't know. But that definitely was the thing. Like when I was in high school, I was watching a lot of American TV shows. So again, that helped a lot. And I remember that right before leaving for the US, I had to take like an English test, like a certification, and the teacher was British basically, and we had like some test conversation. And I remember he said to me, "Wait, did you learn English in America? Like, did you went to America?" And I was like, back in the day, I was like, "No, never." But I just learned it, by watching movies and TV shows. So this is why I have. He was like, yeah, because you don't speak British English, you speak American English, and you tend to have like an American accent and not a British accent. Yeah, because in school they teach you British English, but again, that's not how I learned it. But so definitely, I would say that most of the people that speak English very good are doing it because they're watching movies with subtitles, TV shows with subtitles and everything. That's how it's done.
Sometimes I feel like with America, we just have so much influence because I was talking to a German friend of mine, and we were talking about I was talking to him about TV shows that I like, and he said, "Oh yeah, like we watched that here." I was like, "Oh really?"
Yeah, but well, I frankly, because well, I mean, now because of Netflix, there are more Italian TV shows and movies, quality Italian TV shows and movies, because that's the key word. But definitely when I was like in high school, but even growing up, like all the movies, all the TV shows were, if you wanted to watch something good, it was either British or American. Rarely Italy was able to, create something that people below age 60 wanted to watch. So definitely America has always had a huge influence when we talk about entertainment.
So like, what in the process, like what was relatively like the easiest, and then and then also like the hardest part in learning English?
Oh yeah, I did that a lot of years ago. But let me think. At first it wasn't like, I didn't start by watching TV shows in English fully. I remember that I was using Italian subtitles. That helped a lot because I think it is important that you are used to listening to English. When people are speaking English, then you get used to that, and then the next step is to use English subtitles. In this way, you are able to like read the sentence and associate what you're reading with what you're also listening. And that is definitely how I learned it. And then the final step was basically to remove the subtitles, and you were able to actually only focus and understand what they were saying. Um, so I remember that, of course, at first it was, each step was hard. So it was hard to change from Italian subtitles to English subtitles. It was like, okay, we can do it. Let's do this. And then it was, of course, hard to take off the subtitles. But I remember that I was doing that at first. Like, even if I didn't get the whole sentence, I was still listening without, like, watching a show without the English subtitles. I was like, yeah, let's pretend like I'm alone in America or in England, and let's see if people when they talk to you, they don't have subtitles. So even let's see what I can get from this. Uh, and basically, after a while, you get used to it. That's how that was my process.
Okay. And I do know that, like, at least, like, I remember a couple of times when I was living with you, there were like instances where you said like you missed home, or like I think we were out at like this like place that was like, I think it was like this like bridge or like canal area, and I don't know. There are times like where you're like, you talked about how like you missed home, or like you're like, it's nice being here, but I would never want to stay here. Like, what
Yeah.
would you say, like what made, like, in a way, like, what, and it kind of makes me think, like, what, like, do you love the most about like where you're from? Because I know it, from what I know about you, is that you just seem like you're very proud of where you come from, as anyone should be.
Yeah, but so I guess that the thing that I learned when I was in the US is that no country is perfect, and there's a huge difference between being a tourist in a country, in another country, and actually living there. Getting to know people from that country. Um, you know, uh, I had this idea, for example, of America as the best place on earth, where everything is fine, everybody is happy, or whatever. Which of course it's not true, as it's not true anywhere in the world. Every country has, its weaknesses, let's say. So I remember that when I was there, of course I missed, my friends and family. That was a huge part. um, but I also remember that, all the things that you give for granted, for example, I don't know, culture, old museums, stuff like that, happy hours at 6 p.m., that are not a thing anywhere in the world besides Italy, I believe. I don't know. But all those little things where you're like, man, I was so used to that I didn't realize how much I liked all of those things. But so for me, it was the first experience abroad. So that there was definitely like this kind of shock in being far away from home, very far away from home for more than a week. It was I was alone in another country. So of course I was homesick. So if you ask me what I like about Italy, if I am proud of being from Italy, yeah, of course it's a great country. It has a lot of history, a lot of culture, a lot of traditions that I realized that I like. As I mentioned, happy hour at 6 p.m. Cheap drinks, cheap. What I missed the most was definitely, and that's gonna be very stereotypical, but it was good food for a low price. I remember that what I was really pissed off about California was that it's very expensive. Like if you want to eat good food, quality food, you have to pay a lot of money. Otherwise, if you pay like what it's, you know, let's say if you don't have all that money to spend on food, you don't get all the quality that you get in Italy. So I was like, yeah, I mean, I kind of miss that. But again, for example, now it's been like a year that I'm in the UK, I still, of course, I still miss Italy, but at the same time, I would say that it's much easier than when I was in the US. Um, I mean, it's still Europe, so the mentality is kind of the same, let's say. But for me, there was also that factor when I was in the US that I was thinking like, yeah, it was a new challenge for me, let's say.
Okay. And then just kind of switching to like, talking about where you're from. So you said you're from Venice. So what is like the culture necessarily look like for a native? Because I know that people come to Venice and they're like, oh, Venice, it is, it is what it is. But it's like, well, for a native, it's like, well, we don't, it's like we don't travel in boats every day. It's like
Mm.
we do normal things. So,
Well, it is important to point out that I'm from the Venice like province, but technically I'm from a city that it's like 20 minutes from Venice. So it's like a normal city from Italian suburbs. There's like yeah, it's like our culture. It's pretty basic. I wouldn't know. I feel like the suburbs are the same in the US as they are in Italy. It's quite of a easy life where my town is a perfect place to grow your family. To study, go to university, find a job there, grow your family. and then your kids will do the same. Lots of young people just go somewhere else, and then they might go back when they're like 30 or 40. But yeah, I would say it's a typical Italian suburbs town. Of course, when you talk about everybody like, oh, you're from Venice, so you don't have streets, which is like, yeah, yeah, in Venice there are no streets, but it's really hard to find somebody actually living in Venice. So I think that's the most interesting thing for a choice. Like, not a lot of people are living there because it's not that easy. If you think about Venice, it is a city, like a beautiful city, but it's not that functional for everybody. Say that you, I don't know, work somewhere else, it's a bit of a hassle to, to move from Venice to another city, I would say. So it is much easier. Like, most of the time that you hear somebody saying that he's from Venice is probably from the area surrounding Venice. But Venice is like this museum where you can go. But yeah, not a lot of people do live there.
Okay. Yeah, and I remember you were saying that transportation is a lot more efficient in Italy than it is in the United States. Because I remember you were showing us how I think you were showing me like the intricacy of the metro system.
Mm.
Yeah.
I didn't like the transportation system in California, the public transportation system. So I used to took the subway basically every day to go to work. Yeah, that's something that I really don't like about California, is that the public transportation is I'm talking about California because I live there. I don't know how it is. I know that New York is pretty good for public transportation, so I'm referring to California right now. But I didn't like the fact that if you didn't have a car, you basically couldn't do much. It was very hard to move from one point of the city to another. And for me, it was a struggle because I felt like taking the subway was only for, and it's not a beautiful thing to say, but I felt like it was like for poor, low life people to take the subway to get, on the bus. Whilst if you have like a good income, you were able to get a car. Uh, for example, in most of European cities, largest city, anybody like take the subway. It's not like if you're poor, you take the subway. Uh, and literally anybody. It's because it is such a great way of moving around the city because it gets you there quickly. And what I didn't like at all about the subway in LA was that it didn't really take you in places quickly because it was very dysfunctional. There was a subway like a train every 10 to 15 minutes, and that's not how subway works. It should be like a train after 2-3 minutes. And the stops were like, of course, Los Angeles is a large city, so I'm not saying that. Yeah, I understand that it's hard to have like a good subway or bus system. However, yeah, I didn't like I didn't like that fact that public transportation was not considered for everybody, but it was only considered like if you didn't have money, you took the subway. Whilst if you have good money, you could have your car and go everywhere. Because yeah, that's not how it should be. It should be like it's the fastest way to go from one point to the other of the city. And that's what I didn't like, and that is one of the many different things that are different between Europe and the US, I would say.
Oh yeah. So I think like it's more so as it's like not very well maintained, and it's not as expansive too. Because I do know that because I used to work in Orange County, which is about an hour or two away, and I used to take the subway to Union Station, and Union Station was a little bit more interesting because you can go further out, and they're a lot nicer. But I think that like the normal like metro station was just not. I don't know. I think I kind of agree with you, and I think that California emphasizes like driving more. Like you see so many people driving versus like when I was in Paris, where everyone was just packing in the subway, which you don't
Yeah.
see a lot. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, but again, this is very specific to California. I'm sure that city like New York or Boston, maybe you're able to get pretty much anywhere with the train. But yeah, this is definitely something very different in California.
Okay. And so, like, another thing that I noticed about you, especially like from the short time that that we lived together, is that I noticed that, like, I don't know if this is just you or if it's like part of like cultural, culturally like acceptable to kind of like because I know you're very like animated about like things that you don't like or like because I mean one of the things that I've noticed like even with like Europeans particularly like when in America we say hi, how are you doing, and we're like,
Yeah.
good, how are you, good. It's like with a lot of my European friends just in general, it's like, how are you doing? They're like, oh well, I'm going to tell you what's going on, or I'm like really like it just feels like there's more honesty about like if you ask me how I'm doing, I'm going to tell you how I'm doing. And if I'm frustrated, I'm going to show you that I'm frustrated. And I know that like, because there is a conception about Italians being very expressive about, not just like emotions, but just in general, if they're like, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but just being like very expressive about, themselves or how they feel.
Oh, so that was a cultural shock for me. The "Hey, how are you?" thing. I remember that I was like, "Why is everybody asking me this?" And at first, I was actually replying like, "Yeah, I just moved or whatever." I was actually, speaking like, "It's not a good day" or whatever. And then I realized that it's just everything. Like, you just say it. Like, you don't even need to hear back. Like, you just say it. I was like, okay, okay. But the thing is that now I'm doing it. I'm still doing it even here that I live in the UK, and I feel like it's not a thing here in the UK. So people are actually replying to me like, it's Monday or whatever. So I feel like it's an only American thing, this "Hey, how are you?" Thing. But as you know, your question was about if we show more emotions, or what
Mm-hmm.
was exactly the question?
Yeah. So is it common to be more like expressive or more like open about like your emotions or how you feel about certain things? Because I noticed that like about you in certain cases. I don't know if that a thing that's just
I don't. I wouldn't. I don't like stereotypes. So I feel like this is kind of a stereotype. Um, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't say so. There are some Italians that maybe are able to show more, their emotions. But I would say that it's more of a stereotype.
oh, okay.
It's like. But yeah, that's my thought.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. And then also going back to what we were talking about with like in terms of like geography, because I know that you mentioned that there's differences between the North and the South, and I know that there also I believe that like there are different dialects. I mean, I think that's generally how it is in a lot of different countries. Is that um, they're always different like dialects or like in Spain, they have Catalan and then there's the Basque people. Like, how would you say that they're like how um, basically like I'm trying to formulate this correctly. So like what differences do you typically have noted that you've noticed with like the North and the South, and then also like if there's any particular dialects in your area?
Yeah, there are lots of dialects in Italy. Lots. For example, I come from the Veneto region, and
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure we have like four or five, maybe more dialects. So it is a thing in Italy to have many different dialects. I would say that if of course, between the north and the south, there are many differences, as there are differences between each region. There are 20 regions in Italy, so every region has its own dialect. Um, when people talk, they have their own accent. So, and of course, there are traditions. Um, so definitely, I would say, of course, if we want to talk about economy, the economy in the north is better than the economy in the south. Let's say, culturally speaking, there are differences. Maybe I would say that the south is more conservative on some things, while the north is more European. Maybe that's if this is something that we can say. But of course, I don't want just to generalize this too much. Regarding dialects, I would say that they're pretty common anywhere in Italy, but the south is famous for having a lot of people, even young people, speaking in dialects, while maybe in the north is less of a thing. Like, for example, in my case, I don't know how to speak my dialect. My parents didn't want, like, my parents do speak in dialect when they talk to each other and when they talk to like friends their age, but when I was a kid, my parents didn't want to speak with either me or my sisters in the dialect because they want us to learn like proper Italian. They didn't want us to, I don't know, being not able to speak Italian. So that they never, like, even now they're not speaking to me in dialect, even if some words I understand. But so this is why I wouldn't be able to have like a full conversation in dialect. Actually, when I try, I look weird when I'm doing it. So, and I say some words even wrong. So it is kind of funny. I guess that we are a bit losing dialects the more time it goes. But however, there are some people who are speaking that. So I would say, like, if somebody comes to Italy and thinks like, when I came to the US and I thought I knew English and then I realized that I had so much to learn, I would say that it would be a shock for anybody coming to Italy and listening like to so many different accents. That would be the biggest challenge probably.
Okay. That's interesting because I know even as an American, like there, because I grew up in Kentucky, so even though I'm like in like the metropolitan area, which is more in like the Lexington area, but then like when you get like further closer to when you get closer to Tennessee, that's where it's like more of a rural area with like, and the dialect is like to many friends of mine who kind of like yourself who don't speak English natively, it's really hard to understand. Even I don't understand it. So, um,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
That was the problem for me with. Is Kentucky considered south in the US?
It's sort of. It's like kind of a mix. It's like somewhat part of the Midwest, but then it's also South because it's just it's a really confusing like I don't know how they organize that because technically I know like for like the NCAA like tournaments like they have like the SEC Southeast Conference and so it's technically a part of that, but
Mm.
then it's still geographically people call it the Midwest.
Oh, okay. Well,
Like it's confusing.
I do remember that for me, it was definitely a challenge to understand the accent from the south. That was definitely like, man, I don't understand what you're saying. We had a roommate from the south, and I didn't get what she was saying most of the time. And at some point, I just gave up. At first you're like, can you repeat, please? Like, can you slow down? I didn't get it. But then it gets embarrassing to keep asking to somebody like, I have no idea what you're saying. So yeah, for sure. But yeah, you have to consider also English as this thing where there are different dialects in the United States, but you also have to consider there are like British accent, Australian accent, New Zealand accent. Like there was a girl from New Zealand when we were living together. And at first I didn't get a word she was saying. That was another challenge for me. That was a very hard accent, and it was the same thing here when I moved to London. At first I was like, man, British accent, didn't quite, get what they were saying. But again, when time goes on, you get used to it. So it takes time, I guess.
Okay. And then I know that another thing that you had mentioned to me at one point was I think we were because we were talking about like election season, and you said that in a way like um, um, part of like our politics does. I mean, I understand that our politics can sometimes affect other countries because I remember you were telling me that some political parties that were kind of that have similar views had won certain elections. Like,
Hmm.
does it seem that way in terms of because I know that as we mentioned that America does have a huge influence, especially like in like pop culture or things like that. But like from a political standpoint, do you feel like we have like some form of an influence?
Yeah, I do. If you study history, I would say that it was more the U.S. was way more influential during the Cold War, for example, especially in Italy, back in the days, because it was capitalism versus communism back in the days. So the U.S. was definitely influencing all of their allies to have like a democratic, um, pro-capitalist government. So definitely during the Cold War. But as of now, there is. I would say that yes, we are there. I would say that there is still influence from the United States in the Italian. I can't speak for Italy, but for the Italian politics, definitely. So I remember that at first it was Trump saying America first, like um, I guess it was 2015. And then after a while, there was a political party in Italy as well, starting to say Italian first. But I think that the funniest thing for me was to actually look at the design. Like if you take the Trump sign that was like Trump and then Make America Great Again, basically this Italian politician just copied that design, putting the name and then Italian first. Something like that. So it was like literally the same blue background, the same, like there was this square kind of thing. And the thing is that it worked. It actually worked. So we're still looking west, let's say. We're still the US are definitely influential in politics as well, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, well, just as a final question, like for, because I do have part of my audience, I do have a lot of people who are language learners and people who are interested in culture. So just as like for a final question, like for anyone who wants to particularly learn Italian or planning to visit, like what do you feel like is the main thing that people should know before going there, or just from the approach of learning the language and then going there?
Mm. So as for learning the language, I would say keep in mind the different accents because they're very different one region to the other, and don't be afraid if you don't understand. Like if you understand one day you understand Italian, the next day you're like, I don't get what this person is saying. It's because there's a different accent. So keep that in mind when you're first listening to people talking in Italian. Maybe if you're listening to songs, keep that in mind. And also, of course, keep that in mind that there are a lot of way of saying things in Italian. So be sure to check, like, do not literally translate what has been said because uh, it might be just a way of saying a thing. So yeah, be sure to not literally translate everything. I would say to keep in mind. And as for if they want to visit Italy, yeah, keep in mind that every region is very different. Definitely, there's a huge difference from the north and the south. So keep the study what it like. Do not like if life in Milan is a thing, do not expect that life in Rome is the same thing. It definitely there are a lot of differences. So definitely do keep that in mind if you are ever planning to move to Italy. But and as for the rest, yeah, just go to Italy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure to help you.
All right. Well, I really hope that you enjoyed that interview. To be honest with you, I love talking to her. She's like, she's like my favorite person. And yeah, so I'm really glad that you guys got to watch it. Like and share with anyone that you feel like would really get the most out of talking to someone or listening to someone who actually is an Italian. Especially if they're learning or really interested in Italian language and culture. And I definitely encourage you to subscribe to this channel because, again, we're creating more content to, as always, get you more connected to the world and the people that are in it. So I will see you next month on this series, first Saturday of the month.